Hello everyone. I welcome you to the webinar today. The topic Desert Locust and its Management. I am Neeta Singh, a member of AG MOOC's team. With me present is Dr. Prabhuraj, the speaker of today's webinar and instructor of your course Integrated Pest Management. We all know that India is facing the worst desert locust problem in the last 3 decades, and desert locust swarm at India, Rajasthan in April, and now it has spread to 5 states in India: uh, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, and Maharashtra, causing great damage to the crops. So the topic was chosen by Dr. Prabhuraj. Is very important. We all are curious to learn more about on this topic. And before we start our presentation, today's talk, I would like you to know that there are almost 11,000 students in this course, and their active participation and appreciation of this course is a great motivation for AG MOOC's team. In the forum, many of you have posted that how much you are learning from this course and how much you appreciate this course. And this is with these words, now I will invite and welcome Dr. Prabhuraj to start his presentation. Sir, please, I invite you to start the presentation.
Thank you, madam. Good morning to all. And so in fact, it is great to see that all the participants of the AgMOOC course on integrated pest management are now connected to each other through this webinar. And on this occasion, a special presentation on the invasion of desert locust, Cysticerca gregaria, and its management is going to be delivered. And I am going to start my presentation. So welcoming all for this presentation. As I was mentioning earlier, that it is great to connect to all of you. But however, at the present situation, the condition is not so good, as the entire world is passing through the horrible time through this COVID-19 pandemic, and India is no exception to that. But apart from that, India also is facing a bigger challenge, such as the very serious cyclone Amphan, which just created a lot of havoc in Odisha and West Bengal. And another cyclone is now passing through, the Nisarga. And in between these two, we had an incursions of the desert locust, and which is considered as one of the deadliest plague in the entire world. So now this is a right time to look at the insights of this deadly pest, and so why it becomes so deadly, and how it becomes so deadly, and how we are actually dealing with this pest these ages. Okay, so welcoming all to this the desert locust Cysticerca gregaria. So we are going to look into these the important aspects. Well, I am unable to look at the slide mover.
Sir,
Madam, I am unable to move my slides actually. I'm sorry. Madam, I am unable to. Am I presenting my this thing? Is visible to everybody? Am I presenting my this thing? Is visible to everybody? Am I presenting my this thing? Is visible to everybody?
Yeah.
Now it is okay.
Yeah.
Now it is. Okay. So continue with that. So what are locusts? So this is a very important thing. Look at, so it looks to be the grasshopper like, and we do get grasshopper everywhere in the surrounding area. So around your houses, in the fields, wherever you go, grasshoppers are visible. And but some of the species of I call them as are swarming phase of the short-horned grasshoppers. Are like any other grasshoppers, but they have the capability of becoming into a big swarms and increasing their population tremendously and causing a huge economic loss. So all locusts are grasshoppers, but all grasshoppers are not locusts. So please remember that. And these species that can breed rapidly under suitable conditions and subsequently become gregarious and great. It is not that they are able to build a huge populations. Also, they can move to a far great distance and devouring every green material that is visible on the ground. And as they actually keep traveling, so they cause this serious havoc into that. So the locust, if you look at the word locust, in fact, is derived from the Latin, which means the plague. Okay. Locusts are world. So there are around 10 species of locust. So of which the desert locust, the Cysticerca gregaria, is the most. So in terms of area and in terms of the loss actually causes. In this, we will be considering or concentrating on this species alone. But India also faces, apart from this desert locust, the onslaught of other few species of locust also. So India, so there are 4 important locust species which frequently occur in different states of India now and then cause the economic loss. Among that, of course, desert locust is the number 1. There is also a migratory locust. The locust also occasionally comes and causes a problem. This is called as a Bombay locust, which is nomadic Cinta, which usually like breeds in some parts of Gujarat and Bombay and then moves inwards to the southern part, move as far as Chennai and cause damage on their way. And you do get the tree locust, that is Acridium species. Okay, so species from India, but of which the desert locust is a repetitive one and it is quite consistent. So we are actually concentrating on the desert locust, Cysticerca gregaria. As you can see it here, so there are 2 locusts. Both are desert locust only. So one, the left side, if you look at it, is a little bigger and a little grayish in color. On the right, what you see is an yellowish and little smaller in color. So this indicates that though this looks to be 2 different species, but they are of same species, that is Cysticerca gregaria, but they are of 2 distinct phases. So in the locust, this is a common feature where every time you cannot expect the locust to be swarming mode and causing it. So they occur in 2 distinct phases. One is a solitary mode and the another one is the swarming mode. On the left side, what you are seeing is a solitary mode phase. On the right side, what you are seeing is a gregarious phase. Let us go in detail about this. And what is this desert locust? It is most notorious. It is like what we can say is an international pest. found across the continents, in fact, found in Africa, in the Middle East, and Asia. And it inhabits 60 countries and over 1/5 of the Earth's land surface. Can you imagine? So 20% of the land surface is covered by this pest. And these swarms or the groups, the size of this as squares, and 1 square kilometer swarm or a pack will contain 80 million locusts. That is 4 to 8 crores of locusts. And it is reported that each insect that is a locust on one day will consume the food of its body weight. And in such cases, so one such swarm of about 1 square kilometer can eat 192 million kgs of plants every day. So that is the capacity of the locust. And I was mentioning you about the solitarious and the gregarious phase. The solitarious phase, what you are seeing here, and the gregarious phase. The solitarious phase will be exactly like the short-horned grasshopper phase that you normally see around your area. But the gregarious phase is actually the kind of a swarming phase and then a damaging stage. Distinctly it appears. One, as you can see, and this one, they are in the nymphal stage. How do they look? So the final nymph of the solitarious phase, so it will be in that means greeny color always merges with the plant background and will be very cryptic and isolated. So the density of the solitarious phase will be less than 3 per 100 square meter. But at the same time, when this transforms into the gregarious phase, where the color becomes quite dark, a patch of pink, yellow, and black, that becomes more aposematic coloration. Aposematic means the warning coloration. Immediately one can distinguish it from the solitary phase. And this happens, then the population will be more than 100,000 per square meter. So that becomes a gregarious thing. Now this one will actually slow creeping gait, doesn't move fast and doesn't jump also so furiously. But this one, it is highly active. And here you can see that antenna and eyes, they are very large because for the local situation to adopt, they will be developed. But when the gregarious phase, antenna and eyes become shorter, but more of a mechano and a taste receptors will be there, where they have to actually feel and sense the surrounding environment. So for like migration. Adults, if you look, so that will have a longer hind legs and low fat deposition. And whereas here, the gregarious phase will be in high because they keep for hundreds of kilometers in their adult period, and because they need the reserved food for it, and it grooms frequently, so they will actually frequently. And these solitary phase, both as well as adults, they are crepuscular in habit, in the sense they are active during dawn and dusk. But whereas the gregarious phase, they will be very active during diurnal. So because they fly during daytime and they actually visible. Okay. The solitary phase will have a very restricted diet because they will be only restricted to the breeding ground, and as a result, they simply feed on the whatever the plants available in those desert areas. Whereas gregarious, they become wide host range. Anything that is seen as green, so they poop on that and then they will feed on that. So be it in a forestry or a horticulture crop or an agriculture crop, whatever it might be.
Hello, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, there has been some issues with the audio.
Okay.
And learners are not able to listen it properly and voice is choppy. So
should I be louder?
Louder will also help. And could you please check your internet connection if it is stable?
Yeah, it is stable. It is stable.
It is
I don't
Wi-Fi.
see any.
It is Wi-Fi connection.
It is Wi-Fi connection.
Okay. So maybe then speaking louder will
Yeah, I think I will try to do that.
I will give you signal if it is important. So please continue. Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay, so I will try to be a little louder. And now, as you can see it here, like so, the many of the adult the desert locust, in fact, they are in the gregarious phase. So you can see them laying eggs. So the egg laying and the egg production and the population buildup will be very, very fast. And at the below, you can see that the egg pods. Okay. And the abdomen, when they actually lay the eggs in the deeper into the sandy soil, will actually stretch like a telescope so that they can reach far deep, as much as 10 centimeter deep inside the soil for laying the eggs. If you look at the growth and development of the desert locust, basically you get three important stages in the locust. So one is egg stage, and second one is called as hopper stage, which is actually the nymphal stage, and the adult stage. So the egg stage, the incubation period will be about 10 to 65 days, just depending upon the climatic temperature, humidity, soil moisture, etc. So the 10 days will normally occur when the solitary phase is transforming into the gregarious phase. So the multiplication becomes very, very quick. Then the second is the hopper stage or the nymphal stage, so which is between 24 and 95 days. This is again is dependent on the climatic condition, and on an average, so it will be a 36 days. Okay, and adults will live anywhere between 2.5 to 5 months. So they've got quite a long the adult period, and you have three important phases in the adult period. So one is called as a fledgling phase. Fledgling phase is that as soon as the last nymphal instar will molts to the adult, and it's before it actually takes off, so we call it as a fledgling phase. And then we have the laying phase. Laying phase is that the egg laying period phase, in fact. And before that, actually, so after the fledgling phase, then they will enter into the immature adult stage. That means the adults will be there. They are quite capable of flying and feeding, but they are not sexually matured. So they will be not mating, and they will not be laying the eggs. That actually forms into a sum, maybe around 2 months or so. And then they'll enter into the what is called the mating or the reproductive phase, and where they will be a matured adult, and the color of these adult will also changes. During the immature adult stage, the adults will be like pinkish in color. And what we were actually seeing, the incursions of these grasshopper, I mean the locust in India now, they are all pink swarms. So fortunately, they are all immature adults. So they simply came, then devoured the plants, and then went back, but they did not involve in the mating and egg laying. So the adult maturation is from 3 weeks to 9 months, and average is about 2 to 4 months. And during solitarious phase, um the adults will be, I mean, there will be 5 to 6 the instars. That's 5 to 6 times they molt. And whereas in gregarious phase, so it will be 5 instars. Okay, so you can see in the image that so the abdomen of these locust will reach into the soil up to around 10 centimeter, and then lay the eggs. And as you can see, the eggs are the banana shaped, and like the bunch of the bananas, you can see them laid in the sandy loam. Okay, and what actually triggers them from transforming from the solitary phase to the gregarious phase? So a lot of research has been done, and it was found that Basically, it is the production, high concentration of the serotonin as the protein, which actually triggers the transformation of the solitary phase into the gregarious phase. Okay, so how that actually triggers? So it basically triggers based on the environmental factors and as well as the crowding factor. That when the solitary phase, as I told you, that with less than 3 per 100 square meter, when they start multiplying in large number and they start come in physical contact with each other, such as the touching up of the antenna, touching up of the body, especially the hind leg. When this all starts happening, then that actually triggers the production or increases in the serotonin. And when that happens, the all the color changes, the shape, the all these things will keep happening, and also accordingly the reproductive capacity, then the life cycle stages will all start enhancing, and then they quickly forms and then comes into a mood of the swarming or migration. Okay, so they always usually migrate in the direction of the wind at a wind and they can cover up to 100 to 150 kilometers, and usually the speed of the wind and the direction of the wind will decides so in which way that these swarms are. Now how exactly it keeps happening? So this is a very interesting phenomenon. Like usually the desert locust, as the name indicates, they always breed in desert, so they need an soil for their multiplication, the loose sandy soil. And when they are in the solitary phase and when the condition becomes congenial, what is actually the congenial condition? Good shower in the desert and increased humidity and decreased temperature and increased soil moisture. So which actually triggers them to multiply very fast, because by that it also coincides with the proper or good development or the perpetuation of the desert plant. So it provides food for it and then start quickly multiplied. And they are actually found in patches. So in those patches, you see these black patches which are keeping multiplying. And when these patches becomes a bigger and bigger, and then they're merging. So you can see this black one, they are all completely the nymphs and are in a mood of transforming into gregarious phase. Then these patches will merge, forming a larger band, and they start actually resting on the. This was also seen in India. Okay. And then they will start moving forward during daytime, and they always march in one direction. So and then start. If it is a nymph, then they will keep like moving on the ground, hopping on the ground, and then keep marching like an army, and then start devouring the plants whichever in they come their way. And then when they once become molds into the adult, then they start flying. And during a sunny day, in fact, they start flying 2 to 3 hours after the sunrise, because they have to warm up their wing muscles, and the temperature is a key factor. And maybe normally if the temperature is more than 15 to 17 degrees centigrade, then so they will be ready for the migration. In the cloudy weather, so they again wait a little more time, about 4 to 6 hours after sunrise, or if the temperature should rise above like 23 or 24 degrees centigrade, then they will keep moving. And of course the wind direction helps them in deciding so in which way they are supposed to migrate. Then when they start flying, then during a sunny day, so their flight will be very, very fast, quick, with along with the wind direction. So they can cover, as I told you, up to 150 kilometers in a day. In a cloudy, movement will become quite slow, and so they don't travel much during that. Okay, so then when they are going to land, so the whole day they will keep flying, and just before the sunset, maybe around 2 hours or about half an hour before the sunset, then they will land. Generally, they land on the green patch for feeding in the night. And so if it is a heavy rain or a cloudy, then it actually hinders the movement of the or the flight of the uh, grasshopper, I mean the locust in fact. So you can see there's full swarms of the grasshopper and the one which are actually resting on the plant and also feeding. And where does these swarms actually occur? So this is a very beautiful the map, so which depicts the distribution of the desert locust. What you can see as the darker green patches, which is distributed throughout the sub-Saharan desert and also the eastern part of Africa and the entire Middle East and the southern Asia, so including the Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Balochistan, Pakistan, and India, especially Rajasthan and Gujarat. Okay, so there are two important. I told you is a solitary and gregarious. Solitary phase when they are in, we call it as a recession area. That means they will be in a very less in number and so they are distributed in patches and doesn't cause much damage except just moving to the neighboring the cultivated field, feeding and then coming back. That's all. Otherwise they will be feeding on the desert plants and then so surviving. Okay, and in this the recession area itself, so it covers nearly 30 countries so of Africa and Asia. But when this will form into the gregarious phase and then start migrating, then you can see that light green area is the area so which these swarms will cover. Then so the number of countries that it covers will double from 30 countries. Now the only 60 countries are going to be affected, and this entire area of course forms into the 1/5 of the land mass in fact. So 20% of the land mass is going to be covered, and these points that you are seeing are the swarms. And you can see that these swarms I told you, which stretches as minimum of 1 kilometer square kilometer to thousands of square kilometer. And you can look at that when these swarms all coagulates, congregates, then so it becomes like an so completely like an epidemic like kind of a situation actually happens. So in India, if you look at it, the green patch which indicates that they cover the entire North India, the eastern part of India, central India, and they move as south as possible. But the invasion into the southern part is not so frequent. The history, since how long that these actually incursions and these farmings happening, of course it is happening for millions of years, and we only know about that since our civilization. So that's why we start having a record of these locust swarms in our oldest the literatures, be it in the Vedas or in Bible or in Quran, where they actually all have mentioned the occurrence of the locust, and which they call it as biblical plague kind of a thing. And I just would like to quote some old the references for the mention of this occurrence of locust in India particularly. So by a person called Y. Ramachandra Rao, who extensively worked on locust and wrote a book as Locust in India, where he has mentioned the occurrence of the locust in as far as 1890. Of course, before that also there was mention, but the literature existing will show about this, where they have mentioned that the extension of these swarms to a far south in India, so up to the southern parts of Karnataka, in fact. And in 1878, there was also mention of about another species of locust, that is Locusta migratoria, up to Chennai and Coimbatore. Then in 1943, again, Y. Ramchandra Rao, in one of his presidential speech in 30th Indian Science Congress forum, he mentioned that though the locust is an international transboundary pest, but its invasions, if you look at it, so is very much what is called as concern to the local or the regional point, and the officers and the entomologists of the particular local regions need to plan out the management practices. In fact, that's what exactly the we have done in the present invasions. Then the latest one which actually happened was the last year. In fact, of course, we usually get this locust occurrence at a very definite periods. So in the cycles, a cycle of about 10 years, then 20 years and 30 years. Okay, so it happened. And and once it happens, then the occurrence of the locust will last for anywhere from 1 year to 6 to 7 years. So they continuously keep coming and coming and coming. So the deadliest the invasion had happened during 1993. Then after 27 years, this is the major the invasion which has happened. In fact, okay. So during 2010 was also the invasion happened, but after that, so this is once again it has happened in 2019-20, especially last December. So there was an occurrence in the Rajasthan, Gujarat, Punjab, okay, covering around 4 lakh hectares. Now, I quickly come to the current situation. Let us not spend much time on the history of it. What is now the present situation? Okay. This is a map which very clearly indicates the present situation. And this, as you can see, this is a completely a summer breeding ground. So which includes the part of Rajasthan and the part of Gujarat, in fact, majorly Rajasthan. Basically, the locust in Rajasthan and Gujarat, so they involve in the summer breeding. Only we have summer breeding here. Whereas in Pakistan area and Balochistan, Iran, and other places, there will be a spring and the summer breeding. And whereas in the Africa, so you get all the 3 seasons, they will be breeding, especially in Middle East and the Africa. So as we can see it here, so there were the invasions of the locusts from the Pakistan from the summer breeding, and they entered India, the swarms, somewhere in the last year, I mean, as early as the April month, in fact. Okay, so it actually around 23 swarms were actually detected in the Rajasthan area, and some of the swarms started traveling internal to the states and covered the what is called the Madhya Pradesh way, and then the parts of Maharashtra. They came as near as the Nagpur last week of May, if you can actually following through the newspapers and other media. And this swarm was actually around 5 kilometer length band was there. And in Maharashtra, they could succeed in splitting the band for 2 kilometer length band. And they initially were indicated to move towards Chhattisgarh and Ghana, but somehow and then re-entered Madhya Pradesh, and they started moving. So this all depends upon the wind movement as the wind direction. That one. Okay, so it so happened because there was good the shower happened in the desert area, and then they started moving towards the lower pressure area. And in fact, Amphan is also believed to have what is called as an helped in the invasion of the locust into the inner states of India. And during May and June, again, these breeding swarms keep coming, in fact. And June, again, in the mid-June, estimation that so they can actually again come. If they come and if the direction of the wind and the condition is favorable, they can move to Uttar Pradesh and Bihar to as far as Orissa. That is what is being expected, in fact. but we need to wait and see. So at present, around 50,000 hectares of cotton, summer, pulses, and vegetable crops have been affected by the locust across the 6 states: Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, and parts of Maharashtra. And so the reason I already mentioned, as normally with the arrival of the monsoon, the locust swarms enter desert area of India via Pakistan for breeding in June and July. Okay, but this year pink adult swarms were reported as early as April 30 in Rajasthan and Punjab. That has resulted in the further invasions into India. This is because of uncontrolled swarms in the Pakistan that bred continuously, and swarms of the pink adults fly high and travel long distances. You see, I told you. So the swarms which entered into the inner parts of India are the pink swarms, and pink swarms are capable of flying very high and for a far distance, and they are also destructive in nature. Okay, so with the strong winds coming from Pakistan, most of them settle on trees during the night and mostly fly during the daytime. And in fact, as you are also some of you aware that this is not the first occurrence in this year. In fact, this is a second wave. I can say that the first wave was somewhere started in December and continued up to February. So that was the winter breeding from the winter breeding place. And in January, the biggest locust swarm was hit Gujarat in over a quarter of a century, resulted in more than 25,000 hectares of wheat, rapeseed, cumin, potatoes being attacked, and with at least a third of the crop damaged in 75% of the affected areas. The map will clearly indicate that all red points indicates the swarms, and so many swarms which are actually occurred here and which actually led to the entry into the neighboring districts and causing a huge loss, in fact, in the first cycle itself. And this is what we are actually witnessing. The second, third cycle is expected in June and July actually. So that's is actually closely being monitored. Now the FAO has given a very good prediction map and tracking the movement of the locust across the continents. And accordingly, if you can see it here, up to July 2020, they have given the prediction. As you can see it here, the eastern part of Africa, the northeastern part of Africa, and then part of the Middle East, southern part of the Middle East, and the South Asian part, which all are the spring breeding ground. So that is in April and June. Now the breeding is going on, swarms are forming, and these swarms, the red dots which are seeing, are all the swarms, and they are ready to actually migrate. They might migrate directly to India somewhere in mid-June period, and also somewhere in the mid-July period. So the ones might keep coming there. So this is what has been actually is predicted, and depending upon the size of the swarm and also the local situation here or the climatic condition, they might be restricted here itself in the Rajasthan and parts of Gujarat and might get controlled, or there is also a chance they might actually again invade into the 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 inner states of India. Okay, so this we need to keep have a very close monitoring on this, in fact. So how to manage it? So that's a big question, like can you actually manage swarms about crores and crores of insect coming at a time and devouring in few hours. Okay, but we have an excellent integrated management practice. That is where the IPM actually comes. So, and it is very right forum to discuss about the components of the IPM which needs to be employed in managing such an epidemic situation. So even the IPM works in that epidemic situation. And as you are aware, at least even through the course, and also the components that IPM practices will not start when the threat occurs. It starts even before the threat is formed, in fact. Okay, so that is what we're going to discuss. Now, one very important is the monitoring. Survey, surveillance, and close monitoring is most important for any pest for that matter, but especially if those pests are of a very high destructive nature, then it is very essential and it's continuous. So the early warning and the preventive control is a strategy adopted by locust affected countries in Africa and Asia to try to stop the locust plagues from developing and spreading. In fact, FAO is completely responsible for managing the locusts, and according to FAO, they have divided the locust breeding and as well as the invasion ground into three important regions, as the west region, the central region, and the eastern region. And the three groups are actually formed, and each group will be closely monitoring the area of their operations and also interacting with the other groups very frequently. Now, I will restrict to our eastern region and especially in the Indian subcontinent. So, where in India we have these locust warning organizations. You see, this locust warning organization was established during pre-independence period when there was a very serious outbreak of the locust during late 20s, 1920s and early 30s. So that has led to a serious think of the management of the locust, and in 1939 the locust warning organizations have been actually set up. So what these organizations do, basically they look or closely monitor the locust uh, in the desert region where there are breeding centers are there. So there is a regular breeding centers of the locust. So because in the breeding centers, they will be in a solitary phase, it is very easy for us to monitor them and as well as prevent them from converting from the what is called the solitary phase to the gregarious phase. So there are about 11 the locust warning centers are there, two in the Gujarat and around 9 in the Rajasthan deserts, and the Jodhpur is the headquarters which closely monitors that. Okay, so how do they monitor it? So that's very interesting to watch that, in fact. So there are like field scouts are there, and who actually daily they go out, either they monitor on foot, either they move through the vehicle and then monitor. Sometimes in an emergency situation they also take then airborne monitoring the methods, and they collect the grasshoppers that is in a solitary phase, and then they closely observe the color changes if it is anything happening, and they also monitor the density of these solitary phase grasshoppers per unit area, and then based on that they will keep what is called categorizing them as the what is called as a low threshold or a high threshold kind of a thing. In fact, now they are using the e-surveillance module as an e-locust 3, and where these observations will be taken through the handheld devices, and this information will directly go to the software that is the Ramses software, and there it synthesizes into the reports and then gives the points there, so at different colors indicating that in what mood that these local breeding systems are actually existing. Then based on that they start deciding the management practice, and based on this they also gives a locust watch. In fact, at the FAO level they give the locust watch for all the three regions, that is the Southwest Asian region, that is our area, and then Arabian Peninsula, that is in the central region, and the East African region. So is the three things. For all the three things you can actually they keep giving out the instructions and also the forewarning alerts. This you can see it's as early as on 20, well, as recently as the 27th May 2020, this was actually given, and with the help of the maps. So this helps us in keeping the track of these local swarms, the locust swarms, and make us prepared. So with any other management practices to take care of them. And in India also, especially for these the states where the invasion is occurring, so there is a desert locust situation. Bulletin is going to be released from the Jodhpur periodically, and every time to time, so hour to hour sometimes. So the positions of these farms are going to be uh, what is called as informed. So that is how we actually kept a track of it. And when I was telling you that the locust was trying to move towards the eastern part and took an U-turn and re-entered the Madhya Pradesh, and where exactly they are landing, and then immediately they will actually prepare whatever the kind of management practices which are actually they can muster it on that area, so they will do it immediately. But of course, the primary method of the managing or controlling the locust is use of insecticides. And this use of insecticides also suits very well, especially in their breeding grounds. Okay. And what you are actually seeing is the vehicle mounted sprayers. And these sprayers are all ultra low volume sprayers with a very high concentrated insecticides, and so they actually spray over these the breeding ground. Okay, because all these breeding grounds are in desert and an uncultivated area, so these chemicals can without any problem can be used, in fact. And if the swarms are occurring in fact here and there, then they also use the helicopters or the aeroplanes for aerial sprays and managing and subsiding these swarms. And if for the local bushes and all, they use the handheld sprayers, and then so they actually manage it. So primary means of controlling is the insecticide again. Even when swarms occur and then so they come invade, right? What happened in Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and Maharashtra. So we majority, so we actually relied upon the insecticidal spray only. So it is because that actually gives the quick control measure. But however, we do have there are natural enemies in the form of predators, the parasitoids, and birds and reptiles. So they also to majority of extent, so they will take care of the locust in the breeding ground especially. But that happens only when they are in a solitary phase. But in a gregarious phase, so sometimes it will not going to work. And farmers, so they have developed and relied on their own indigenous method, as when these nymphs will they start marching on the ground, then they actually dig the trench and dust the chemicals insecticides on the trenches. And when these hoppers then they fall in the trenches, then they bury them. But it becomes quite labor intensive and it is difficult when such swarms are very huge. And many farmers now also use the this one distract the local swarms by making noises, the burning tires, that is smoking, and other methods. And to some extent this also helps, because when you get a clear indication that where they are coming and where they are landing, so before they land, then if you can actually create such a huge noise in the field, somehow these swarms are quite sensitive to the noise and they will get distracted. But the problem is that they might actually distract from that field, but they will go and settle in the neighboring field, and later again they might come back. So it is not going to be a permanent solution, but this is to some extent is quite effective. But biological control seems to be quite effective, because you see these are in a gregarious forms and they are found in a crowded situation. So then it is always better to use the biocontrol agents such as entomopathogens. So which once the few individuals of them get infected, then it triggers the epizootics in the swarm, and the control becomes quite effective. So as a result, in the African countries and all, FAO has initiated in mass production and supply of some of the important entomopathogens such as the Metridium acridum, the variety, so which is quite specific to the Acrididae group, that is grasshopper group. And you can see the image where this the spores are actually germinated on the rice, and which is a cheap way of multiplication and supplying to that. So there are some green muzzle and Novacrid. So these are all some of the commercial formulations of these entomopathogens which are available. In India, again, we basically relied on that mainly because of the quick invasion which has happened, relied on the insecticidal spray. In fact, so as far as one of the reports, as many as 700 tractors, 75 fire engines, and almost 50 other vehicles are engaged in spraying the pesticide to kill the locust. And drones have also been employed in some area, so for managing it. So because such an epidemic situation, we will not have any other option but to go with the insecticides. So that in that way, so there is a good management or the control has actually been achieved. So the best way is to have a close monitor and see that let us not allow them, the locust, to take off. That is the best way of managing it. And that we are doing it since ages, but it seems to be a certain cycles which is appearing. And so these cycles will lead to this swarms, and we need to have the preparedness for this, both at the initial stage and as well as at the what is called as the epidemic stage like now. So thank you for your patient hearing, and now we can actually look at any discussion or the questions arising from the participants. Thank you.
Sir, questions you can see and answer them.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. Can entomopathogenic nematode be used for its management? Well, there is one possibility, but I don't think any research has actually been initiated, and an species entomopathogenic nematode has been used in a commercial basis, because entomopathogenic nematodes are having a very broad range. They can be used, but still the research needs to be done for that. The another question is Kalai Rasi R, how long will the invasion last, and how will the onset monsoon influences the locust mode? Of course, in the presentation I mentioned that once the locust insurgence starts, then there are the what is called as the reports that within a year they have been controlled. Otherwise, they will continue to be there for about 3 years, 4 years, up to 7 years, something like that. Basically, it depends on the climatic condition. As long as the desert area where there is a breeding ground, they receive good showers, then the breeding keeps continuously happening and swarms are continuously going to be formed. So with a prolonged, now the present the eruptions of the locust is speculated to the previous drought condition existing and a good monsoon showers which actually has come into late 2018 and 2019. So it doesn't mean that within a month that this insurgence starts, the swarms will start. It takes 1, 2, 3 seasons for them to build continuously and then becomes a major swarm. And if that kind of a situation keeps happening, then we might start facing the threat of it, so for quite a long time. And another question from I am Perumal, is there any chances to come to South India? Yeah, well, in the present situation, like in the last week of May, so there was a huge concern for the entry of the locust into the southern India, especially Karnataka, through the Maharashtra, like when it was reported near in Amaravati district and all. But somehow, like maybe because of these the pre-monsoon showers and the wind movement of the southwest monsoon from the southern part to the north part, probably has diverted them back into the northern states, in fact. But for once the onset of monsoon happens, the report says that there is less likely for the invasion of locust in southern states of India. So that's what we're actually hoping. Let us try to look at it. And then Horty answers on net some sorts of what app video has come regarding management. Is it approved? On net some sort of what's I am unable to understand this question. Application video, is it approved? I don't know. See, coming to the management strategies, like the central government has released the SOP, that is the standard operation procedure for controlling the locust. So which includes the monitoring, surveying, then using all means of the management practices. And looking at it, the state governments have also conducted the meetings and also issued the SOPs to the concerned the districts where there is a threat for invasion of the locust. Then Dr. S.R. Doddagowda, why the locust outbreak occurs when there is rain immediately after the dry spell, normally summer. But as it has been seen that the first outbreak was there in the month of January. Well, you see, in a dry spell means it is not a congenial condition for the locust to breed. So their breeding potential will be very low. They will be completely in a solitary phase. When when showers come, then the soil moisture increases, the vegetation increases, then immediately, so quite naturally, they will lay more number of eggs, and the egg hatching percentage increases, survivability increases. That's how they can build the population. And what is called as the invasions of the locust in the December and January and February, it was because of the breeding which has happened in the Central Africa and in the Middle East region. So in the previous 2018 showers, which was actually distributed throughout the summer in the desert area. So that has triggered these swarms, and which after becoming adult has migrated, and it has taken that much time for them to breed, then develop, multiply, and then migrate. So that is how it actually happens. So it is not like over a few days and weeks that it actually happens. The microbial control takes longer time for locust control. Please tell me how to possible microbial control. Yeah. See, definitely the microbial control, if it is applied for infection and causing the death, will take a longer time. But one advantage that we have here is that the occurrence of epizootics, because you know that they are so overcrowded, and so within 1 square kilometer, around 8 crores, the locust will be there. Then even when few individuals are infected with the microorganisms like the fungi, then it spreads very fast across the population and makes them completely infected. So what is called as an occurrence of epizootics is very high. So that is where the microbial control is going to be very, very effective. Okay, so there is one question from Shiva. So is it possible to stop locust breeding before it becomes dangerous? That's what exactly I am mentioning. So breeding means breeding, it will be there. So because it breeds in the desert, it feeds on the natural vegetation in the desert, and those grasshoppers are the important component in the food chain in the desert ecosystem. They are required for the survivability of the other predators, the lizards, birds, etc. We cannot completely eliminate these locusts. In the desert. But seeing that, so they should not transform from the solitary phase to the gregarious phase. So that is where you need to manage it. And all these years, that is what is a major way of controlling the locust. Are there any other questions? Yeah, one more thing that I would like to add now is that, you see, this change in this good showers or the occurrence of good shower, distribution of the rainfall is congenial not only for the locust, so in fact for any other insect for that matter, or any other local grasshoppers for that matter. So that is why in Karnataka we are seeing the upsurgence of some of the local grasshopper species, like the Poikiloceras pictus, it's an eka grasshopper, then coffee grasshopper, Alarchis miliaris, and in the some parts of the Karnataka state. So they actually are also like increasing their population and forming into a local bands kind of a thing, small ones, which the people, farmers and others are mistaking it as a locust, but they are not locust. So overall in India, other places also it might be happening. So Venkata Avinash, the chemicals in the chemical control methods. Yeah, of course. See, there are any contact insecticides will work good. And some of the chemicals which have been recommended by the government of India are the chlorpyrifos, 50 EC or 20 EC. Then malathion is the one. And then lambda cyhalothrin is another one. Then deltamethrin. Okay. So these are all the chemicals which works very effectively in managing or quick knockdown of these locusts. Then Rabi Rai, sir, from where we can get Metrrhizium acridum and can we produce ourselves? Well, so I was one of the part, I was actually participating in a national webinar on locust, which the ICAR has organized. In this, the director of NBAIR, which is a biocontrol unit of India, was mentioning that they don't have this the with them. In fact, though they got some samples from Rajasthan infected with fungus, they were not so. But they have found certain strains of Metrrhizium which are quite effective against the grasshoppers. So that they are actually trying to look at it. But at the FAO level, so that where they will have that the acridum the strain, so which actually can be obtained. But I don't know how far it is accessible and all. Need to work it out. Then Vidya, sir, climate change is responsible for such favorable temperature for locust mass multiplication. Exactly. The climate change is a continuous phenomenon which keeps happening, and all the locust outburst that we are seeing since our human civilization is all because of the change in the climatic condition. So that means to say that not in the present way of climatic condition that we are talking. So that's a cycle of a drought followed by heavy rains. Such kind of a changes will usually triggers them. You see, one thing we need to understand is, I was telling you that these locusts are there for millions and millions of years, and we only know them since our civilization, when we started growing crops and when they started coming on our crops. That's all. Okay, so it is a very, very short period of our understanding with the locust. Mohammad Imtiaz, sir, please explain the relation of climate change and the locust. I told you that climate change, don't take it in the present perspective of the climate change. You please take the in a context of this repeated cycles of drought and heavy showers, which keeps actually happening periodically. That's why, so there is a very definite pattern of the locust occurrence which is happening. See, in 1939 itself, the locust warning organizations was established. But since then, we have seen so many outbreaks of these locusts. So it doesn't mean that we have failed in controlling them or managing them. It simply means that at a certain situation, it even goes beyond our control in holding them or from solitary phase to the gregarious phase. Okay, Sham Arafat. Iran and Africa has started duck breeding program. Is it possible in India? Africa has made methods to capture locust swarms and make pellets out of it and feed for poultry. Can we? Definitely. So all possible routes we need to try. See, the duck breeding or the birds, in fact, I didn't mention about in the history. In fact, Mauritius imported the myna from India for managing the locust only. Okay. And in Rajasthan, especially in certain breeding areas, we can employ these ducks for naturally controlling it. But we need to look at the feasibility of maintaining the ducks also. Okay. So because the locust breeding areas are very, very deep in the deserts, inaccessible regions, and managing that. But when the swarms happens, it's very difficult to even manage with the ducks. So you might have read about like the China has actually sent around 100,000 or so 10 lakhs ducks to the Pakistan for managing or trying to control the locust. But to what extent that has succeeded, we don't know, in fact. Using locust as food, well, so there are many countries which are doing it, in fact. So you might have seen in certain WhatsApp group where in the Middle East and other things, so they are selling the locust in the open market. So that is there, but it actually gets into what is called as a social acceptance and all need to happen. So otherwise, this is a good idea of using the locust as the food itself. Selina, sir, won't the use of more insecticide to control locust have adverse effect on the crops and won't it become injurious to? Definitely. So the excess use of the insecticides and indiscriminate widespread use of the insecticide is definitely pollute the environment and also the non-target organisms. But at that present situation, that was the only solution that we used to have. That is the only way of controlling it. So because outbreak is an outbreak, the pandemic is a pandemic. Okay, the epidemic is an epidemic. So in that way, only to the extreme mode of controlling we need to actually look at it. But the better way is to see that how best that we can prevent. So not to go into that. But in a breeding ground, which happens in the desert, actually, there because the area is uninhabited and doesn't have any kind of an water body or something like that, and the crop is also not an agriculture crop. So then there actually the ULE sprayers and high concentrated insecticide sprayers are recommended, not in the agriculture land or on the other habited area. Suresh Jambagi. So please brief the preventive measures to be taken to avoid upcoming locust outbreaks in Karnataka, if so. Well, there is no such a preventive measure because Karnataka is present in far south, and if at all Karnataka has to face the locust, it has to face the locust swarms, not the breeding kind of a situation. So we need to employ the same methodology as the Madhya Pradesh and the Maharashtra are adopting. So only closely monitor the movement of the locust in close association with the Indian Meteorological Department, IMD, that where the wind movement is there, where the wind directions and wind speed is there, and we can anticipate the occurrence of the locust swarms. So several hours before they start landing, and then keep all these the management tools such as the vehicle mounted sprayers, fire engines, chemicals, and everything in those areas. And as soon as they land, allow them to settle and then start spraying in the night and before they actually the day breaks. So at that time they will be more vulnerable and you can have a very effective. That is how what we heard is that a very 5-kilometer band of locust was split into 2 bands and made them to actually distract the movement directions. So what is the chances of occurrence of locust in, that's what. So the same question, actually the same answer I can actually give it. Gunasri, if the locust breeding control in Rajasthan and Gujarat, there is no way to breed in other type of soil. Well, you see that loose sandy loamy soil is more suitable, but somehow the desert area suits to be very, very congenial for the locust to breed. But when these matured adults will start migrating, okay, and wherever they feed, they also mate and lay the eggs. But the chances of their continuity will be very less because the population will be moving, and when they actually lay the eggs and then move on, then after some times these hoppers will come out of the ground and may cause some nuisance in that. Okay, so by feeding. So otherwise, there is no record of a continuous breeding of the locust other than Rajasthan and Gujarat. That is the flamethrower effective against locust. Flamethrowers are also being used in breeding areas like in Rajasthan and Gujarat. It's not recommended in the internal areas of India. Is there any IGRs? Yes, of course, there are IGRs. Diflubenzuran is also recommended as an IGR, in fact. Okay, so probably those IGRs, in fact, the productions of this, the experiment has shown that if you actually inhibit the production of the serotonin in locust, then they will remain in the solitary phase itself. Or if you artificially increases the serotonin production in solitary phase, then they will start moving, transforming into the gregarious phase. Mohan Ram. Sir, whether those locusts develop resistance on insecticides and that is the perfect dose on using insecticides? What is the perfect dose on using insecticides and any parasitoids to control locust? Well, the locusts are now controlled at their breeding ground since ages, okay, for several centuries. But since the chemicals they are using it are so highly concentrated, so far there are no reports of locusts developing resistance against any insecticides. Okay, and no biocontrol program, I don't see any literature on, a recommendation on the biocontrol at the breeding ground. Natural enemies itself will usually are going to take care, like the local birds, lizards. Some parasitoids also might be there, which are actually multiplying on locusts. Yeah, I think we can actually stop. But there's one last question is Alka Kumari, can desert locust hurt humans or can it cause asthma? I don't know. I don't know about because I have not read any such situations. It only hurts humans in terms of feeding their crop and causing the economic loss. But other than that, the other physical things, no, I don't think so. Yeah, okay. Thank you for a nice interaction. And over to you, Nita madam.
Hello, sir.
Hello, madam.
It has been long session, lots of questions, and very yeah. All the learners were very excited. Lots of questions were coming. So we have almost spent, I think, 1.5 hours, and I thank all my learners for making this a success and benefiting from this webinar. And I thank Prabhat sir for his valuable time which he has given us to inform us about this topic. So thank you all.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.